Hello and welcome back to the Coder's Legacy channel. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about XPath selectors in Scrapy. XPath selectors are a way of extracting data from a web page. They can parse data, filter through it, locate specific HTML elements, etc. In the previous video, we talked about how to do this with CSS selectors, which are also a pretty user-friendly and easy way of extracting data. XPath is slightly more complicated, but it's also slightly more powerful, and we're gonna see that in today's video. All right. If any of you are interested in my previous video on CSS selectors, I'll leave a link down in the description below. Okay, so definitely do check it out. It's really informative. Okay. In this video, we're gonna keep the pace a bit faster because we really talked about everything in really great detail in the last one. So we're gonna keep our pace a bit faster here and more concise. Okay, so let's begin. All right, so I'm gonna start up the Scrapy shell where we're gonna begin interactive testing. Okay, I'm gonna call the fetch command on this website, which is the one that we're scraping, and we'll paste this in here, hit enter, and this should give us a 200 status code, connection successful. And now we can access the response object and begin calling the XPath function to retrieve and extract data. Okay, the first thing that we'll do is just try and retrieve some very basic HTML elements. What's the most basic HTML element that you can think of? A paragraph tag. So let's type in P. Okay, this is what we did in CSS. CSS selectors, we did .css, and then we did P, right? And this returns us these paragraphs. So let's try the same thing in XPath, but this returns nothing. Why? That's because XPath works slightly differently. XPath, okay, let me just open this up first. Okay, I'm gonna inspect element, and let me just minimize this. All right, so what happens is that XPath by default starts from the very beginning of the page. All right, so it doesn't look at the children within those elements. So from the perspective of XPath, there are currently only two elements in the page, the head and the body. That's why it says that there are no paragraphs. It returns an empty list, meaning that there are no paragraphs. But if we add in a double slash over here, this will tell XPath to search within these elements, within these two elements. So then XPath will go and then search inside the elements of body, then it's going to search inside the container, then it'll search between all of these divs, all right, and all of these span classes. So if we run this now, it's going to return these three paragraphs, but these are selector objects. Okay, these are selector objects, which are basically things like the response object. Okay, to get the actual HTML tag, the strings will do get all, and this will return three paragraphs. 1, 2, 3. This is the same thing that we got from the CSS selector, so we know our code is working. Let's try this with something else like A tags. Okay, those are also very popular and very common. So this returns all of the hyperlinks inside the web page. All right, that's a lot of them. Let's just return the first one. Okay, just because this is a lot. All right. So we'll just return one of them using the get function, which returns the first match. Let's take a close look at this string. Okay, this is a string. This is not very useful information. Okay, this is just a string, and this is not useful because we can't do anything with this. What we actually want is the text over here, or maybe the href attribute. The href attribute stores the link to where the hyperlink points. So that's useful information, for example. So how do we find this out? How do we find the value of href and the text? Well, for the text, we can do slash text and then like a function. Okay, this is like a function. This is the text function. So just do this, hit enter, and we get the text. And we can do this for all hyperlinks, and we get all the text. This is called the anchor text. The text on a hyperlink is called anchor text. Okay, then we can also get the href. Let me just change this to get. All right, we can get the href by putting the @ sign. Okay, the same thing that you put in the emails. Then href, and then hit enter, and then we get the href. Okay, and let me try get all, so we can just view all of the hyperlinks. Okay, these are all internal links because they begin from a slash, and these two are external links because they begin with HTTPS. That's just the rule when it comes to internal linking and external linking. All right. So how would we find out which one is an external link, which one is an internal link? This is a pretty common type of problem that we need to figure out when scraping. So how do we do this? So what we're gonna do here is set up a filter. Okay, a filter. What this is basically where we go right after the HTML tag that we want to filter. We want to filter A. So right after it, I'm gonna put square brackets. Okay, and within these square brackets, I'm going to do starts with, all right, then parentheses, and the first parameter here is the attribute that you want to, filter, which is href, and the second parameter is the value. Okay, and this depends on what filter you're applying. We're applying the filter of starts with. Okay, so we're gonna put over here HTTPS. Okay, and make sure to use single quotes over here. Don't use double quotes. That'll mess things up. Okay, and basically what we're saying here: find all of the hyperlinks which begin with HTTPS. Okay, hit enter, and now this returns these two links. Okay, this is a very basic way of how you can apply filters, and there are many other different types of filters as well, and we'll take a look at them. Let's begin some practical examples. Okay, and for that we'll look over here. Let's assume that we want to find all of the quotes in the page. Okay, let's assume we want to find all of these quotes and extract them. How do we do that? What we're gonna do is right click over here and then examine this. Okay, so look over here. We can see that this quote is inside this span of class is equal to text. Okay, so over here, if we open this up, we can see that the text is over here. All right, cool. Now here's the thing. If I just locate all of the spans like this and then do get all, and if I just hit enter, this, whoops. Okay, so, oh, sorry. All right, so here are all of these spans. Now it looks kind of like a mess, so let me just extract the text from them first, and then let's look at them. All right, now look, this is all the text, but as we can see, this is more than just the quotes. We got this, okay, this is a quote, but then what about this? That's not a quote. And what about this? That's not a quote either. What is this stuff doing here? Well, the thing is that we have extracted currently all of the spans in this page. That's not what we want. What we need to do is apply another filter where we filter by class. Okay, that's the purpose of this class attribute, where you can filter by the class, because otherwise there's no way to distinguish it from the other spans inside this web page. So what we're going to do is modify this slightly, apply another filter with the square brackets, and then we'll do, I think, @ class is equal to, then single quotes, then we'll do, what was it again? Text. All right, so we'll do text. Okay, and then hit enter, and there we go. These are all of the quotes. That's quote number 1. All right, we can verify it over here. Quote number 2, we can verify it over here, and so on. All right, now I'll tell you about one more thing, because this may not be enough. Even this may not be enough in some situations, because sometimes there may be other spans with the class of text. So this may not be enough at times. So what you want to do in those circumstances is then check the parent. Over here we can see that the parent over here is a div called class is equal to quote. Now what we can do is apply another check. Like, let's just assume for a second that that this command didn't give us the proper output. Let's assume that there were some other spans also included that we did not want. So another way of filtering through them is to apply another filter on the parent. So that reduces the chances of getting any unwanted output. So we can do div slash, and then on the div apply a filter. Okay, class is equal to quote. Okay, so this applies another filter, and this gives us the same output obviously, but you can basically apply multiple filters in this way just to ensure that you don't get repeated output. And sometimes the website design may just be bad and didn't use proper classification, proper classes, they use duplicated classes, then that's a separate issue entirely. Then you need to come up with something else. Okay, so yeah, that's how you can do basic stuff like that. Let's take a look at another interesting concept. Let me just delete some of this over here. All right, now look, if I just do this, if I hit enter, okay, maybe that's not a great example. In fact, let's take a look at something different. Over here, for example, you can see this div class is equal to quote. Now look over here, there are these A tags inside of it, right? This is inside of it, you know, okay? These A tags are part of this div. Now if I do over here div slash A, then, oh wait, sorry, wrong one. I meant class is equal to quote, single quotes, okay, then slash A. Now why does this return empty? Why is this an empty list? We can clearly see that there's some A tags in here, right? So why is it returning an empty list? Well, the thing is, a single dash over here, you see this single dash? What a single dash means is that it only checks direct children that are one level below. For nesting, just like we discussed over here with the double slash in the start, you need to put a double slash over here, and only then will it return all of the, you know, all of the tags, all of these tags. Okay, and there should be about 40 of these for each quote, and there are 10 quotes on the page. That's why there are about 40 of these over here. Okay, so that's another important concept to keep in mind. Now, what else can we do? Well, let's assume that we want to find the author. All right, so what we can do over here is that we can observe that this is the HTML element small with a class of author. So let's do response.xpath. Okay, and then let's do slash slash, oh wait, no, quotes first, then slash slash, then small, then we want to do class, do a filter, class is equal to author, and then we'll do a slash text, and then do get all, and then whoops, so what's wrong here? Oh, okay, missed a quote. Okay, there we go. This is the list of all authors inside, you know, or here. See, Albert Einstein followed by J.K. Rowling, followed by Albert Einstein again, then Jane Austen. So we can see the same pattern being followed here. Here's another interesting thing that we can do. Response.xpath. Now over here, quotes, now slash slash, then div, then we'll check in the class is equal to quotes div. Now over here, what we want to do is find all of the spans inside this div. So we'll do slash slash span, okay, and this returns all of these spans. But this is obviously for all 10 quotes, right? So what if we only want to get it for the very first quote? So what we can do here is this, okay, square brackets, and just like how we do indexing in, you know, programming in Python, just do 1. And I think indexing starts from 1 over here. Let me just double check. Okay, so this is the quote, and this is definitely the first one. Yeah, so indexing over here starts from 1, okay, not 0. So what we just did here is gotten all the spans that belong to this first quote. okay, this first div. We won't get the ones from these divs, okay, only from this one. And this one has 1 and 2 spans, okay. Yep. So now let's go back here and look at our spans. Okay, this is the first one, this is the second one. Okay, now let's filter out even further. What we can do here is, if we want to find the second one, so what we can do is 2, and this will return the second one. You can see that this is the second span. And if we remove this one, the first indexing, we can get the second, the second span for all 10 quotes. And this is kind of useful because we can extract data and we can select data with this way. We can choose which one, like these are basically arrays. These are lists that are being returned. They have like 5, 10 elements. So we can just use indexing the way we normally do, right? Like we have a list over here. List is equal to 1, 2, 3 over here. And we're just applying indexing in the exact same manner. Okay, nothing new. Now, one more interesting thing I want to show you is how you can chain conditions. And see, this is where XPath is getting interesting. You may have already noticed 1 or 2 things that I've mentioned that you cannot do in CSS selectors, at least not easily. So this is one more interesting thing that we can do in in XPath, that we can chain together conditions. Like let's say that I don't want all 10 of these. I only want the ones which have the author as Albert Einstein. Okay, so how would I achieve that? Well, now that we have the spans over here, what I can do is apply a condition. It's worth mentioning that the spans themselves do not have the author name. It's actually this small HTML element inside them that does. So we'll do /small, and no need to do double slash because we know small is directly a child of span. Okay, and no need to do it here either, honestly. Okay, so then we'll do over here a few conditions. If we just do this, class is equal to author, this will still give us all 10, right? They just look smaller because we're extracting a smaller portion, but there's still 10 of these. We're still getting all of them, all of the authors. Now, if we want to filter the authors, what we do over here is add and, okay? Then we write over here, text, the text function is equal to the name of the author, like Albert Einstein, okay? Single quotes, and then hit enter. And now this only returns the 3 that Albert Einstein has written. That's pretty cool, right? So you can see here that this is how XPath works. It's pretty powerful. It's pretty useful, and there are other interesting things that we can do. Now, there's one thing I want to do. See, in the previous example, the output we got was kind of useless. We got Albert Einstein printed out 3 times, so we know he had 3 quotes, but we didn't extract the actual quote, and that makes it kind of useless. That makes our effort useless, right? So how do we do this? How do we get the quote? See, the problem here is that the quote is in this span over here, and the author is in a different span. So how are we going to navigate between the two of them? How do we extract the author from here and the text from here? That's the confusion over here. So that's a bit tricky, but let me show you how to solve it. Now look at this code that we have over here right now. What this is doing is that it acquires, over here, it acquires the second span, okay, for all authors. Now let me just filter this out for Albert Einstein. Whoops, single quote, there, okay. This is what we did in the previous example, right? So how do we get the actual quote? Let me show you how. What we're gonna do now is write slash, okay, then we're gonna do double dot. Now what does this do? This double dot is a way of going up a level. So right now we're here with this much code, the code that we wrote over here up till this point. This basically, you can imagine that we're standing on this HTML element. When we do double dot, we move up to the parent HTML element. So when we do double dot, we go up to this HTML element. Okay, now this is still not enough. What we need to do is do another double dot slash, and this takes us up to this one, to the div where the class is equal to quote. And now from here we can move down into this class, into this HTML element, into this span which has the quote. So you can kind of imagine that we first went into the second span. We checked, is the author Albert Einstein? If yes, then we backtrack from there, go up to the div, and then we come down, okay, into the first span. Okay, now we can just do this, or we can do this. Okay, either way is fine. All right, and then we do slash text. Now we hit enter, and this returns the three quotes, the first three quotes. Okay, this is number 1, this is number 2, and this is number 3. Pretty cool, right? Now, what should we do now? There's just one last thing I want to discuss, because currently we've been doing everything in the Scrapy shell, and I mean, that's good. I mean, it's good for testing and learning purposes, but I want to show you how to do it over here in the actual code, where we actually write our Scrapy code. So just, you can paste this over here, okay, and this returns our result, and then you can yield this result. Okay, result. Or actually, this returns to us some quotes, right? A list of quotes. So what we can do is, for quote in quotes, then we can do yield, and typo, okay, yield quote and quote. All right, do you get what's happening? We've returned a list of quotes from this expression that we created, then we're iterating over it and then yielding each quote one by one. All right, so let's run this code. Let's exit this Scrapy shell, Control C, then we'll do Scrapy crawl quote, the name of the spider, quote, then -o, then output.json. Okay, then this will save the output to this output.json file. Let me just delete it because it has some old output in there. Okay, now I'm gonna run this code. Sorry, I'll run this command. Then this will, and done. Okay, and no errors. So the output must have come here. Yes, it is. This is our 3 quotes that have now been extracted and saved into this output.json file. Pretty cool, right? So this is basically how you can use XPath, and if you guys haven't checked out my CSS selector video yet, do go and check that out, compare the two of them, and then decide which one you want to be using. Okay, so that's the end of this video. In the next one, we're going to cover how to follow and navigate links automatically. Okay, it's going to be a pretty important video. Link following is one of the most important concepts in web scraping. Okay, maybe even more important than learning how to use XPath and CSS selectors properly. Because, well, we'll talk about that in the next video, okay? So if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any future updates, because we have a lot of Scrapy content planned, okay? At least a dozen videos, all right? A dozen very informational videos. See you guys in the next one.